Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Welcome, everybody, on today's episode of Big Blend Radio's Author Sunday Show with Books Forward. We're talking with author Robert Stadnik. He is the author of the Exodus Starship Adventure Series and Exodus Universe Space Opera Sci-Fi Series. Super cool. We're excited to have him on the show, and you can keep up with him at robertstadnick.com. He's got a new book coming out. It is called Infinite Retribution, and it comes out through Phoenix Books on April 20th, 2021. So watch out for that. But again, keep up with him at robertstadnick.com. But Robert, how are you doing? Welcome.
I'm doing great today. How you guys doing?
We're doing good. Yeah, we're excited to chat with you. And I just want to start from the beginning because you've got different books out, and it's two series that you've got, or is it all one? The Exodus series.
The Exodus series is a five-book series that documents the adventures of the crew of the Starship Phoenix, and then the Exodus Universe novels came about because I created so many secondary characters and so many things that happened in the Exodus series. So the Exodus universe developed from what happened as a result of the Phoenix's adventures to the people of Earth and the solar system. So the Exodus universe novels are standalone novels, but they do a lot of tiebacks to the Exodus series.
Oh, that's so cool. Now, Nancy, I know you're reading Exodus of the Phoenix. And the first thing you said, you connect with the character, like it's more about characters than getting too technical, like, because Nancy and I can't, we need help with that. Don't ask us to fix your car.
Yeah, but it's not only that. That's what comes to mind when I'm reading this book, which is totally different. I see in movies, and this totally could be a movie or TV series, no problem. But I also saw, like, Lisa, remember when we went to the model railroad in Colorado?
Yeah.
The train track and the trees and the little villages. I would make all these, like the inside of a spaceship is one of those, and then maybe one of the cities, like you're inside a spaceship and there's a city inside the spaceship. I could totally see making
you're tripping
one of
out,
those.
Girl.
I know, I could make a model of it. I think it'd be cool, and then put it in a space museum. Wouldn't that be cool?
Oh, I love that idea. Let's go with it.
Ooh, I think so. I think it'd be really cool. Well, and, like you have a place called the Tormented Valley, and I'm like, dude. Ooh, that's
and the
cool.
Tormented Valley is actually an actual place. I actually discovered it when I went on a cruise up to Alaska, and I was up in Skagway, and I took a train up through the mountains and went through the Tormented Valley. So when I was writing Exodus Phoenix, I'm like, this would be an ideal location to have a secret classified military project occurring that no one would be the wiser, because there is nothing in the Tormented Valley except for very old, broken telephone poles and wires, and that's it.
Cool. Wow. It's sounds like Chernobyl, But it's interesting. Nancy goes to the train thing too, So give us a little overview of the Exodus of the Phoenix, because aren't you re-releasing that with a new cover?
I am, yes. I wrote Exodus of the Phoenix. It's been 10 years since I wrote that novel. So I decided that with the launch of the Infinite Retribution novel, I thought it'd be a good idea to kind of do a relaunch of the Exodus series, so that people could become aware of that series and read up about those characters and see how that series has impact on the characters and situations in Infinite Retribution. The Exodus series, like a lot of my novels, came up through just a simple question. It's always expected that humanity will go out into space. We have the International Space Station right now, and the expectation is we'll colonize Mars, and then we'll kind of branch out into space. And I just had a basic question for myself: what if that didn't happen? What if, for whatever reason, humanity did not go out and explore space, and that constructed the novel, the Exodus series, for me? Why did humans do not venture out into interstellar space. Well, then I created the enemies, the screen, who contain the human race in the solar system. So as long as humanity didn't venture outside the solar system, they were left alone. But anybody trying to attempt to leave, they would be destroyed by the screen. So that was my premise for the series.
Dude, the screen's got to be green and wavy.
Yes. At first I thought, okay, let's make them Martians. Like, no, humans colonize Mars, so we can't do that. So we got to make them truly interstellar, but they're still green.
Wow.
Cool.
So when you're writing, because this scene is so visual, right? Are you drawing pictures and like getting props? And I mean, I could imagine you doing a vision board that would just be totally trippy, like all kinds of space things. I mean, what does your notes look like? Do you draw on the walls, or what's going on?
I am probably the worst drawer on the face of this planet. I can't even draw stick figures without struggling. So, no, actually, believe it or not, the story pops in my head. I generally know the story from start to finish. And so for me, it's about getting it on paper, writing it down, and figuring out the specific situations that occur as the novel proceeds. Now, because I wrote a series, you have to have continuity. So when I'm talking about creating alien races or even the technologies and everything, I have my little red velvet book that I document actual things that are in the novel. So that way, as I'm writing about, the screen, okay, they have green triangular ships. They don't,
cool.
No one can't understand what they're talking about, how they communicate. So I have to make sure I track all those things. And as I wrote the subsequent novels and introduced new alien races, I had to document, their cultural nuances. What do they look like? What are their idiosyncrasies about them? Because fans will catch you on that if you have inconsistencies with things. So that's pretty much the limit of what I document. But in terms of the novel, the story itself, it's all in my head, and I just sit there and write. Sometimes I go back and I say, okay, this isn't working, or I get an insight. Oh, this person has to do it this way because it feeds into the character, or it helps, enhance the story. But for the most part, there's no outlines. There's none of that stuff. I just kind of sit and write a draft, and I just kind of go along and write the stories as it goes through my head.
Wow. Do you ever go to those Star Trek-y events and look at how people are dressed?
I never have, because I don't know why. I'm just like, I think it's great, those fans, they get dressed up and everything. I mean, they're really dedicated to the stories that they enjoy and whatnot. But I've never been to a science fiction convention before. So.
Well, I know now. Could you imagine with masks on and everything? It would be a whole different thing, But talking about fans, though, you sold over 40,000 books. I mean, this is success,
Great.
So that's got to be exciting to have that.
It is. It is exciting for me, and I sold. When I released the first novel, Exits the Phoenix, I didn't really do much in terms of marketing because I was working full time, and at the time I looked at this as it's kind of a side thing for me to do. It's my escape from reality, is diving into my imagination and just seeing what I come up with. And for whatever reason, with the second and third novels, the sales just skyrocketed, and I would like to take credit that it was because of my marketing genius, but it wasn't. It just happened. Even to this day, I can't explain why. I even go back and look at the spreadsheets, and it was just for a 1-year period that the sales just really took off, and I just don't know why. I'm very happy about it, of course, because obviously readers really enjoy the books and everything. So, but it was one of those inexplicable things. It just, it just happened.
Cool. I wonder if there was any great space movies out at the time.
There's so many so much science fiction, even before the advent of streaming services. There was a lot of good sci-fi content that's out there. And even now with Netflix and Hulu and all the streaming services, I mean, it's wonderful because you get your pick and choose what you want to watch. And just even the realm of science fiction, there are so many options out there to watch, and I think it's really great. I'm not one, I don't watch a lot of TV, but when I do, obviously I go towards the science fiction because that's what I love a lot, and it's always interesting to see what the writers or even in the TV movie realm, how they produce and how not only they tell the story, but also, you know, kind of the format they do too. When I'm watching a science fiction show or movie, I'm not just paying attention to the story, but I'm also looking at how they present the story. I think a great example was the reboot of the Battlestar Galactica series, how they showed the ships and the angles of the battles and everything. It came across as a documentary, and I really appreciate it. I thought that was a really good, unique idea in terms of a science fiction show.
Cool. You know, I think this is neat, you know, having it on TV and everything, but I think everyone is drawn to sci-fi, even if they're not sci-fi, you know, like that's my genre. Like everybody in some way, I mean, look at Star Wars and Star Trek and I don't know, maybe it was all William Shatner's doing. I don't know. But if you do a movie or a series out of it, I think he needs to sing your music for you just because it's fun. But, you know, the best thing is when Shatner paired up with Iggy Pop and did Silent Night. I still think that's funny. But
oh, yeah, that's great.
I love that. But I think what's interesting is this, we're drawn to it because I feel like we, as the human race, the human species, that even when we look at reptiles and we look at dinosaurs and flying, you know, dinosaurs and all, you know, even look at roadrunners, you're out in the desert, you look at them and you go, I know you've been there. And we kind of all feel this weird thing that the Armageddon's going to happen and that we are on our way to space. And look at what's going on in the world with Elon Musk and the whole thing of going, the, you know, Virgin, you know, Galactic and all of that stuff. We want to go to space. We want to go to the moon. We do go to the moon. But we have this collective vibe that's what's going to happen. That is our destiny, is space.
Yeah, and I'm a big proponent too that I think it's inevitable we'll go up into space, but one of the things, and it's reflected in the history of the Exodus series novel, is that, you know, before we can really make a spearheaded effort into space exploration, we kind of need to fix some of our issues at home, and that's why with the Exodus series, humanity did face Armageddon. They faced the extinction of their species by their own fault. And when the calamity happened, humanity had two choices. We can either continue going along as we were, pointing the fingers at who started it, who did what, or we can say enough is enough, that we need to come together and we really need to address some of these longstanding issues we have in our society and really start coming up with solutions that's going to improve the lives for everybody on the planet. And in my series, I chose a route that, yes, we came together. We addressed issues in terms of social problems, environmental problems, to get where we needed to, so that way, okay, you know, now as a society we've evolved, we've gotten past some of these old long-standing stereotypes in terms of gender, in terms of race, in terms of beliefs. No, we came together despite our differences, so that way we could better ourselves collectively, and then from there, okay, now we can platform off and start exploring the stars.
I love that. I love that.
Otherwise, you would just planet hop, you know, say, finally got to a new planet, then we dirty it all up and ruin it. Okay, now we got to go to another one, and you keep doing the same thing till you run out of planets.
Well, I think you are able to achieve. Go ahead.
I was going to say space exploration in of itself provides a lot of challenges, and that's one of the things I explore with the new novel Infinite Retribution, is that, okay, now humanity's really making a good effort to start with interstellar space or exploration. But those are challenges in and of itself. Just because things are okay at home now and we've resolved a lot of our issues, now you have a whole new set of challenges that you have to tackle, and sometimes it's not always successful.
Mm. And, I think that's so important that you're character-driven, because that's what we can connect with as humans and as readers, right? And that's probably why you're getting a lot of fans, too, is it's character-driven. And you want to identify with the characters, and that helps us make change. It's through storytelling. It's not pointing fingers that get people to make positive change. That never happens. It doesn't work that way. You can't force people to do things. But through storytelling, where people can identify with somebody else, that is the way positive change happens. That's just my belief, that's the arts to me. It's beautiful in telling the story of humanity, the history, and preserving the history and sharing it and interpreting and being pretty honest about it through whether it's fiction or not.
Yeah, and I think in this day, especially with this last year that we've all had to deal with the pandemic, I think a lot of people out there, it's really important for us as artists to be able to present them stories, because it gives some people an escape not only from what's going on in the real world right now, but also too, it's going to give them some hope that, hey, we do have the potential for better things. There are a lot of good things out there. I think in the media these days, there's a lot of negativity that's portrayed, but if you just go out and go out in the real world and just see people, how they operate, it's still refreshing to see that there's still mostly good people out there. Yesterday, I was in downtown Phoenix, and I was in my truck playing one of my Pokemon games. That's my kind of like secret little escapism as well. But I was watching a young couple with their dog, and there was a homeless person just a little ways from them. And I watched as this young man, he just got up, went over to the woman, homeless woman, said a few things to her, and gave her some money. And it was just like, it's things like that is not reported on every day, that we don't, we don't necessarily see all the time. But it's just kind of a nice reminder that despite everything that's been going on in the world, despite the recent things that's been happening, is that, there's still mostly good people out there. And you do see that if people, go out in the world and interact with each other, that, most people out there are still good.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean,
That's
we travel
sure.
full time, and it's a very immersive experience what we do. I know you're going to be featured in our Big Blend Radio and TV magazine. It's a digital publication, but we also have Parks and Travel magazine. And, with that, we're traveling, documenting parks and public lands across the country and connecting the parks with the communities. I mean, even small community parks, pocket parks, that they're all important to the environment and for people's mental health and physical health. And as we do that, we're either staying in bed and breakfast because of it's just, or, you're staying in smaller hotels that are really taking COVID safety and sanitization in a strong way. They're really working hard on that. Or we're actually house and pet sitting across the country, right? So we're in this immersive experience of what it's like to live in these different communities as someone in a home with pets. So if you hear a dog bark, everyone, by the way, that's Luna. It can happen at any time. But it's a really cool way to be. So we're in this immersive experience with people, whether it's a guest in the bed and breakfast or the person and their pets. And everybody's coming from a different background, but we're united through caring about a community, caring about animals, caring about travel. So we have these ways of connecting, no matter what we believe, politically, religious-wise, all of that. But you can find this common ground, and I think that's so important. And I think that goes back to the arts as well. Fans of sci-fi are going to connect. Maybe it's at the conventions, maybe it's through a book club, maybe it's just with friends, getting together over watching sci-fi or Battlestar Galactica, reading your books. There's a common ground that we can have through storytelling in the arts, and I think you're right about people. We've experienced that even, driving through some crazy times and crazy things happen.
Yeah, and as I've mentioned, I used to travel extensively for work. I've been to most of the country, and a big part of what's fueled my imagination, a lot of the characters and situations I've developed in my stories, I can attest as a direct result of the interactions I had with individuals in the course of my travels. Sometimes I meet somebody and I construct a character around them completely, or sometimes I meet somebody and they're an amalgam of different characters that I may create and everything. So, but I'm a big believer that because of my travels has allowed my imagination to be fueled the way it is, and has allowed me to create these stories and really create these character-driven stories, because a lot of components of my life, of my own personal life experiences, they're embedded in my books, either obviously or through some, very subtle means. My life is dotted throughout these novels.
I love that.
So you're saying if somebody serves you a cup of coffee, they might turn out to be a Martian in one of your books?
Absolutely.
Cool.
I will give one example. It's a little sad story, but I think it's important to convey, because I do want the readers to know who I am. Originally, the Exodus series was supposed to be a 4-book series, and that was it. And then I wrote the 5th novel, not because I wanted to, because I needed to. I lost my dad about 5 years ago. My mom suffered from Alzheimer's, and he was her caregiver for many years. And the last year, he physically declined, and we had to place her in a memory care facility, and I lost him 6 months afterwards. And I think it was part of my mourning process was that I needed to write a novel, and I wrote Fractured Alliance, and that's a direct result of me losing my dad. And I have a character in there that's based upon my father, and it was kind of my therapy for me to be able to say, this is how I'm coping with it, this is how I'm dealing with his loss. Was through this novel. It was one plot line of a couple. Of course, I had a science fiction story behind that as well, but I had that other plot line in there too, because I needed some way to be able to deal with his loss. I went into my writing, into my imagination to be able to process losing him and everything. So
wow, yeah, that's it's that's the arts, again, therapy, man. They are like in music, you write, and I think even through the pandemic has created. There's a lot of creativity flowing, because what are you going to do other than create if you're a creative person? It forces you to dig in there and really share a piece of your heart. When you write like that, and looking at characters and connecting with them and putting them in your book, your books, I should say. I know that you have got a drag queen in there, an intergalactic drag queen. So I want to know about that. Come on, like where, how, what? I love it. I love it because, again, you don't expect that. And there's a lot of finger pointing at that. And look at, I think one of the most inspirational people on the planet is RuPaul. I really do.
Yes.
And I think
and I will
you've got to send the series to Ru.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I used to watch. I watched RuPaul's Drag Race. Religiously.
Cool.
I used to watch that. I mean, I love that. I love that show. When I created this character, Chris Ann, my initial thought process was, okay, I'm going to have this famous singer who's essentially hiding on the Phoenix. But I thought, no, it's not just a famous singer. It is the most famous singer of the 22nd century. And for whatever reason, he disappeared at the height of his career. No one knows what happened to him. And then the captain of the Phoenix, Captain Roberts, he just inexplicably discovers that I know who you are, and you've been hiding on this ship. And encourages Christiane to, come back out. let everybody know who you are, and you need to start be a performer for the crew, and especially the mission that they're on. It's such a dangerous mission that we need you as the morale officer on the ship to make sure people's spirits are up, because things are going to get tough. And when I was imagining Chris Ann, I couldn't help but keep thinking of him dressed in all these elaborate, over-the-top gowns. And I'm like, okay, he's a drag queen performer. But in the 22nd century, they don't call him drag queens. He's just a singer, and that's just part of his. That's just part of his performance motif, is that he's a singer, and that's what he does. And he's he's very popular. But the term drag queen doesn't exist because, like a lot of things, such terms have gone by the wayside in my novels in the 22nd century. It's like, yeah, he's a performer, and he looks great in these outfits, and, good for him, and he entertains, he makes people smile, and that's what's important.
Wow. The USO has come a long way. You think about it. But that's really cool, because right now there's, are you black? Are you white? Are you this? Are you that? It's like, what about just who I am as an individual without, that's why we're the blend, and it's, taken us a long time to and to stick with that, because everything is connected. We're all connected in some way. And I think that's what the galaxy, you look at the galaxy and the stars, that reminds us that we're all connected in some way, And so I love that, because we've got to look beyond the shell.
And absolutely. And when I create my characters, I do not sit there and think, okay, this character is a man, this character is a woman, this character is transgender. It's going to sound funny, but I don't have control over that. My mind tells me what it tells me. So when I created, Captain John Roberts, okay, that's Captain John Roberts. He's a man. Commander Julia Olsen, okay, she's she happens to be a woman, but I don't consciously sit there and say, okay, this has to be a male character, this has to be a female character. I just create the characters, and it's almost as their gender is an afterthought, because again, they have everybody, regardless of their identity, their gender or whatnot, everybody has the potential to achieve the goals that they want to achieve for themselves. And this notion that, oh, isn't it amazing that, this individual achieved this position because, and she happens to be a woman. No, that's completely irrelevant. She attained her position because of hard work, dedication, and that's what she wanted to accomplish for herself. Wow. I have one character in my novel. She started off kind of as a secondary character. She's in Nexus of the Phoenix, so I'm sure you've come across her, and that's Carla Vespia. She's the head of terror security. And she kind of started off as a secondary character, and she's dotted throughout, most of the novels, and she's become the main character in Infinite Retribution. And, she's very strong. She got to where she needed to because of hard work, but she also got to where she needed to because she's not the most desirable character. She's underhanded. She's backstabbing. But that's just who she is. It's not because of her gender. It's because that's her character. That's the person she is. It would be no different than her, I would say her nemesis on the council trying to take her position. He's also underhanded and everything. They're two peas in the pod together. But again, she is the person who she is because that's her character. But she got to where she's at because of her own efforts and hard work, and no one looks at her in my novel and says, well, wow, she's head of terror security, and she got to there, and isn't it great because it's really driven home where women have gotten to where they've gotten to. They progress after so many years. No, my novels, we're all past that. That's ancient history. That's she got to where she is because of who she is, of what she accomplished, and not because of her gender or anything like that.
I think Jane Lynch could play her in a movie.
Oh, she would do great.
Wouldn't that be perfect?
She would do absolutely great as Vespia. I think she could nail down that character easily.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
this
go ahead.
you keep saying the word progress, and I think that's what we were talking about at the very beginning about what sci-fi is. It's about that progressive movement towards space as a human race, right? And there's the whole thing about, are there aliens on the planet, on, alien sightings, and then you look at, David Bowie and you go, he's an alien. There's and any Lennox needs to be part of it, right? And you look at no, I believe aliens are here among us, and talking about the whole gender part. Elon Musk is an alien for sure.
Definitely.
But as you look at this, I think that we're progressing, and eventually, I don't think we are going to have genders. I feel like we look at the human race that we are progressing that way, and that's part of the friction of pointing fingers and carrying on. And it's an interesting thing because I know I'm going to get weird emails, but I do believe
the church is going to come after.
Well, that's the thing. I want to say, what happens when what about religion and sci-fi together? Now we're going to, maybe that's Scientology. I don't know. Now I'm really going to get in trouble.
Yeah, no.
Oh, boy. I don't want to go there, but you know what I mean? Do you have churches on a spaceship?
Yeah, in the world of Exodus, and again, I will fully admit this is because of my personal thing. I'm not, really a religious person at all, but in my novels, religion has fallen by the wayside with the human race because, again, and I kind of explain it a little bit in the novels, but then when the nuclear holocaust happened on Earth, one of the things that happened was that, a lot of people were saying, some people were saying that, well, this is a result because, you're sinners and God's punishing us for this. And collectively, the majority said, no, this is not because God is punishing us. This is because we kept going along as we were. We brought this on ourselves. This is not some higher power punishing us. This is us. This is what we did to ourselves, and we can't use any sort of God or deity as a scapegoat for what happened to us. And if we're really going to be able to move forward and get past this and survive, we need to take accountability for our own actions.
Exactly.
And because of that, religion kind of fell by the wayside. Now, it probably does exist somewhere on Earth, Luna, or Mars, but I'm not going to write about it, so.
Careful if you say Luna, she's going to bark.
Yeah. She is sitting here listening. It's so incredible. She can hear. Even though I have a headset on, she's just sitting there and looking at me and cocking her head one way or the other.
She heard her name.
I think Elon Musk would be a good choice to play John in the movie. And
you know what? But I don't think he's young enough.
Well, sorry, Elon.
Well, I wanted to ask about music because the word progressive, like you look at progressive politics, you look at progression of going towards space, and just progressive as human evolvement, as we evolve into better humans, right, or aliens, or we're going to be alien humans. I think we're going to be one thing, and then we get, I don't know, but I think we're progressing to not all be the same, but to be the same in that, just like what you're saying about your characters, that it's about who you are in your talents, in your efforts, versus skin color. Maybe that's why we think aliens are all green, right? I don't know.
Are you saying that the humans will marry the aliens?
Yeah,
I think we're all going to end up that. I think that's the progression that we're gonna merge.
And it's funny that you're saying that because I'm working on I never stop and rest on my laurels, so I'm currently working on the latest Exodus universe novel, and it takes place about 700 years from the events in the Exodus series, and I will say the Starship Phoenix is in it again, so that ship has been operating all this time, and it's funny that you talk about aliens marrying humans because one of the main characters in that novel is a hybrid, is a human alien hybrid.
Oh, Monsanto came in.
Yeah.
It could get modified. But, okay, so what about this whole thing with music and prog rock, progressive rock, right? because they're beaming up. There's transcendence, but then they're beaming up with their music. I mean, the whole thing is this progression. I mean, jazz is always in there, and rock is in there, right? Blues sometimes, but this is a progressive thing in music. So I find that I'm fascinated by this. If prog rockers are, in fact, going to have alien tendencies too. I don't know. Now I'm going to get emails from all my friends. But you know, there's something interesting about, like, even the synthesizers and the keyboards in prog rock, and that kind of goes into spaceship land, because, like, when you look at a prog rock band, they have all of the, I mean, it's normally a bigger band and all these synthesizers and all these different kinds of guitars. And, I mean, they look like they could beam up, you know. So do you think there's a connection with this and sci-fi?
Absolutely. You can always make connections between them and everything. Music, like science fiction and writing, you have various forms of expressions, and it's inevitable that those two, you know, things will kind of interlink or intersect with each other. So I definitely could see a connection between them, because music, like writing and other forms of art, you know, you have different forms that you can of expression. And I think also too, sometimes in a lot of different art mediums, they borrow from each other. So you know, I'm a writer. I'm influenced by music. Oh, believe me, I have my playlist that I listen to when I'm writing, and when I'm listening to my music.
Tell. I want to hear what it's about, what your playlist is like.
So most of it is instrumental, because I find that if I'm listening to a song and there's words in there, it messes me up. So it has to be usually instrumental. Most of it, believe it or not, is actually video game music. I think some of the best instrumental music out there are from video games, and that in itself is an art form. I went to the Phoenix Orchestra a couple years ago, and all they played was music from the Castlevania series, and it was a great performance. And I thought, that's here we go. We have classically trained musicians who are borrowing music that was created in a video game studio, and they're expressing that music in their own medium. So that's a perfect example of how different art forms kind of borrow and influence each other.
Oh, I dig this. Well, I'm glad, because we're gonna. I have a playlist for you. Then I'm looking at the list of music, and it keeps growing as we talk. But I'm going to play for your song today. It's called "Ring Around the Moon," and it's an instrumental.
Love it.
From our friends Michael and Spider. Spider is an incredible guitarist who's played with everyone, and sadly he's passed on. They were in a glam punk rock band in the 70s, and I think they were the very first openly gay punk rock bands in LA, and they went through a lot of hell doing that, and created amazing music with Red Wedding and Hey Taxi, but then they moved to Tucson, Arizona, where we actually interviewed Michael on our show, and he said, whenever you get to Tucson, we were living in Joshua Tree area, and he says, whenever you come through Tucson, stop by and come have dinner and a margarita. Well, when we did, we'd moved there. So we became very, very close friends, and they did the music for our shows, even the intro music you heard. But they started doing, Michael and Spider wrote all this. They went from this hard rock, punk rock to these beautiful soundscape albums. And one of them is called Perfume of Creosote, Desert Exotica Part 1. It's through a series called Smoke and Mirrors. So we want to play Ring Around the Moon for you, because it's instrumental and it's cool, because there's something about the desert and the sky
like the moon.
The night sky is incredible.
And
I miss my desert.
The desert landscape, I think, is one of the most beautiful sceneries. And I grew up in Southern California, so green lawns and trees. And I've been out in Phoenix now for over 20 years, and I just absolutely love the desert landscape. I think I get a lot more influence just looking at how life is able to thrive and endure in a so-called dry, a hot environment that, life can endure in various different environments.
Well, it's part of that change we're talking about too. Like when you look at a valley of saguaros, you feel like you're underwater, Like that was the old ocean, and so you can just think about these changes. We are beaming up. We are beaming up for sure. Do you think you've met an alien? Oh boy. I have to ask. Come on, it's fun.
Sometimes my friends tell me, Robert, you're kind of an alien. The way you behave sometimes. So I don't know. Maybe I was born from on another planet. Heck, maybe I could be a human alien hybrid myself. But I definitely met a lot of characters over the years, and more than a few of them I could classify as, yeah, you definitely could be from another planet in a galaxy far, far away.
This is cool. Well,
I think Moses was an alien. Now here comes a lot of emails.
We're so in trouble here. But so Infinite Retribution. So that comes out. Is it April 20th or 21st? I don't know. I thought 21st.
April 21st.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be April 21st that it's going to be released, and I'm really looking forward to that. The main thing on Infinite Retribution is that it takes place after the events in the Exodus series, and so, now we got, humanity is, they're building their new starships, they're getting ready to start, sending multiple ships out to explore the local space around them. And the main theme on that was, there's challenges there. Just because you don't have the threats that you had once before doesn't mean that you're still going to have challenges. And of course, the one ship, the Infinity, is captained by somebody who has had a long career in Terra. She's a decorated officer, and everybody's assuming that, she's this great military person. She's going to do well. We're going to task her with exploring space. And, I explore the theme as well. Just because you have the experience doesn't mean that you're ready to tackle what may be unknown out there. And that creates a lot of problems on the ship when you have this seasoned officer who is kind of struggling with the situation that she does encounter, and now she has her executive officer, who's a very young individual, idealistic, and he's faced with the prospect of, do I go against her from some of the decisions that she's making, or I respect this person so much that I'm going to go along with her, even though I may not necessarily agree. I do look up to her, and I want to do right by her. So there's a lot of struggles and internal strife, and it really explores that the weaknesses and the strengths of individuals. That you could have this strong individual, but they still have they're still vulnerable, especially when when essentially their buttons are being pushed, that you see those vulnerabilities. And that's what this novel, not only on the individual level, the struggles between these individuals, but also as an overall theme is that, humanity's still going to be struggling the first number of years as they're trying to get their space exploration fleet up and running, that it's not going to be smooth sailing. And in fact, that they may even have to take a step back and reevaluate what their intentions are, what their goals are, what they want to get out of, exploring the stars.
Awesome. Exciting. Cool. I'm going to have to read everything now. I'm all into this. I want to beam up. Cool. I want to go. I mean, come on. Do you take any, I know we're going over time here, but do you take any inspiration by reading things like, about Robinson Crusoe and, all those, those early explorers and navigators of the oceans and going out and proving that the world is not flat? Everybody, I'm sorry. I'll go on a rant, and I'm trying not to. But do you take inspiration from the past? I mean, the early navigators, meantime, there probably were people beaming up. We just don't know. And the aliens could have been here at the time. Who knows? Maybe that is the Flat Earth Society. It's a bunch of aliens. It's like the angry aliens. I don't know. But, I mean, we have the Ancient Alien series, too, to watch. But do you take inspiration from history?
I do, absolutely, because history kind of gives us an idea of, it tells us, where we came from and how we got into where we're at. And it's always amazing to read about. I like reading books about historical figures. I've read recently one on George Washington, one on Harry Truman, and it's just amazing that these individuals, in the time that they were living in, what they accomplished, what they did, what historians perceive, what they may have been thinking, and it's just like, wow, this is really amazing. George Washington, who's considered, who we consider the founding father of our country, and at the time, he was just a regular man. Never thought that he would be involved in, creating a new country. It's just amazing to read about, that sort of discoveries about not only about exploration of the land or anything like that, but also exploration of themselves, of the individuals. In terms of aliens beaming up, I always have this thought that, for some reason I'm fascinated by the story of Jack the Ripper. When I went to London, I went on all the tours there, and here's a person who disappeared. We have theories about who he may have been. He may have been a doctor. He may have been, a traveler or something like that. But no one knows what happens to him. Yeah, but I think we have the answer. Oh, the aliens beamed him up.
Yeah. Hey,
oh my gosh! And they did
Truman
on him.
And
brought him back down.
Yeah. If Truman was president today, he'd pay for his own golf trips. Just saying.
Oh, don't start. Don't start. Truman was cool. He was cool. But I mean, that's the thing about also going back in history is, we have to remember things were not the same as now when we look at historical figures. It two different worlds, really, night and day. I mean, if the founding fathers came and looked at this country now, I mean, they would, go like, that's not what we envisioned. Even Carnegie and everybody didn't quite get it where we were going. I mean, I read a book, Napoleon Hill, when he was going around interviewing Carnegie and Henry Ford, and the Napoleon Hill Foundation let out some of his later manuscripts that weren't really printed. And it was all of these Q&As. And Napoleon Hill had this thing about people inventing things and how to go out there and be successful if you don't know what your pathway is. And he's like, people need to invent a Coke bottle that you can drop and it won't break, because he's like, here's this. He thought Coca-Cola was the greatest thing, and here it is in a glass bottle. Meantime, we're thinking we need to go back to glass bottles, but he was all into the world of plastic is this amazing thing, and now we're trying to get rid of plastic. It's this weird thing, this cyclical, it's
whole cyclical thing.
Yeah.
And I think history. I think people don't realize how critically important history is.
Yeah.
And reading back on history, because the biggest vulnerability for people is that they don't learn from their mistakes. And I'm saying that in terms of, major events that affect us collectively as a community. We tend to forget, and it's not because we want to forget. It's because, this happened 2 generations ago. So the current generations, they can't relate to what happened 50 or 100 years ago. And so if they can't relate, then there's that risk that they can repeat the same pattern and make the same mistake. And I think that's why it's very important for, history, for people to be aware of not only their own history, but the history of, the country, of the world. So that way they may not be able to relate, but they could say, wow, this happened back then. We can't let something like that happen ever again. And so I think that's the biggest challenge for us, being able to move forward as a society, is that we don't forget what happened in the past, that we always keep mindful of what's been done in the past, so that way we don't repeat those mistakes again.
Agreed. What a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we covered a lot of ground. I mean,
we did, yeah.
We're going to beam up and save the planet.
It's super cool.
The galaxy. You see, that's the other thing. It's not just our planet. It's the whole thing, the universe. So, real pleasure having you on
Bill
the show.
Shatner. The whole solar system belongs to William Shatner.
Hey, listen, I love Bill Shatner. He's cool. I love following him on Twitter because he just like tells people off all the time. He's great. It's all about him. Everyone, we're gonna let me go again. It's Infinite Retribution comes out April 21st, 2021. Of course, go to Goodreads, go to Amazon, all those places, but also don't forget your independent bookstore to go and ask them if they do not have it to get the whole series in. How about that? Really, as much as you can, go to your independent bookstores, but also go to robertstadnick.com. And we want to thank Books Forward for partnering with us on these wonderful Author Sunday shows. And again, go to booksforward.com, robertstadnick.com. And here it is. We're going to play Ring Around the Moon by Michael and Spider. And you can keep up with them and their stories and music. Because Michael, I'm hoping he's going to do some more music. He had another band called the Elegant Rabies. Incredible voice, but you're going to hear the instrumental side today. But go to michaelandspider.com. Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you, ladies. I really appreciate it. I actually had a wonderful time.
Good. Thank you. And we'll see you up there.
Yes.
When we all beat
Sounds
up.
good.
Nanu.
First class tickets.
I love it.